Warm Mediterranean breezes sweep across the terraced olive groves of Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim on a bright spring morning in 1780. Fresh scents of citrus blossoms float through the narrow stone alleys of Nablus. Down inside the historic old city, beneath thick limestone arches, the air grows heavy with a rich aroma. Raw virgin olive oil mixes with wood ash lye and sweet steam rising from boiling cauldrons. Sunlight has barely touched the valley floor, yet deep inside the vaulted chambers of a traditional Nabulsi soap factory, known as a masbana, fires have been burning since midnight. Here, among cool stone floors and tall masonry domes, generations of master soap boilers perfected an ancient craft. Their pure white soap bars supplied royal bathhouses and ruling courts across the Ottoman Empire, from Cairo to Istanbul. Beyond the thick stone gates of the city, political life across the Levanten province is changing. Feuds between local ruling families, heavy tax demands from the Ottoman governor in Damascus, and rumors of European trade ships near the coast create uncertainty throughout the region. Inside the masbana, however, the steady rhythm of work continues without pause. Skilled hands work together each day to turn fresh olive harvests into clean bars of white soap. Music, historical records, and detailed studies of 18th-century Palestine form the foundation for this artificial intelligence reconstruction of a traditional soap factory in Nablus in the year 1780. Please consider subscribing to the History Forge channel and leaving a like so more forgotten worlds can return to the light through our historical work. Stay with us today as we step through the heavy oak gates of the masbana to watch the grueling 8-day boiling ritual, the careful hand stamping of brass family seals, and the rise of massive geometric soap towers that supported the economy of Ottoman Palestine. Set inside a narrow, fertile valley between twin mountains, 18th-century Nablus shows how stone architecture can adapt to local climate. Built entirely from cream-colored local limestone, the soap factory stands as a monumental structure inside the residential quarter. Its massive design helps regulate internal temperature and moisture levels, which are critical for curing high-quality soap throughout the year. 3-foot-thick stone walls surround the compound, strengthened with durable lime mortar and volcanic ash to protect the structure against frequent regional earthquakes. Subterranean spaces form the structural foundation of the factory compound. The lower story, called the mabtek or cooking cellar, is dug directly into the solid rock of the hillside. This underground placement keeps olive oil storage tanks cool during hot summer months, while trapping heat inside during long winter boiling cycles. Soaring vaulted ceilings supported by sturdy pointed arches allow hot steam to rise far above the main work floor, preventing water droplets from falling back into the chemical mixtures below. Deep storage pits, known as Bir al-Zayt, sit carved into the stone floor of the lower cooking hall. Craftsmen lined these subterranean vats with glazed terracotta tiles and sealed them with waterproof lime plaster. Thousands of gallons of cold-pressed virgin olive oil rest safely inside these cool pits after being collected from nearby mountain farming villages. A giant masonry hearth rests in the center of the cooking cellar floor. Fuel flows into the furnace from an adjoining storage cellar packed with dry olive pumice, known locally as jift. This crushed olive waste smolders continuously at intense temperatures. Sitting right over the open hearth is the main copper cauldron. Local metalworkers forged this huge vessel out of thick bronze plates joined with sturdy iron rivets, making it large enough to hold dozens of barrels of boiling liquid at once. Above the subterranean cooking cellar lies the vast drying hall, called the mafras. Smooth, polished lime plaster covers the wide floor of this upper room. Large open archways feature wooden mushrabia screens that allow dry mountain breezes to circulate freely across the hall while blocking direct sunlight from reaching the curing soap. Sensory details fill every corner of the masbana during active production days. A thick vapor of warm olive oil and sharp caustic lye mixes with the smell of smoldering olive pits and fresh lime dust. Rhythmic sounds of manual craft echo off the high stone walls. Molten soap bubbles inside the heavy copper cauldron with a soft, steady pulse. Metal ladles clink against bronze walls, wooden paddles scrape cauldron sides, and heavy brass stamps strike dried soap blocks on the floor above. Through small upper windows, the distant call to prayer from nearby Al Nasser Mosque weaves through factory labor, anchoring industrial work in spiritual routine. Before early morning light reaches the minarets of Nablus, workers begin their daily tasks inside the shadow of the stone alleys. Young apprentice soap makers, known as amil, wake up in their sleeping quarters along the upper gallery. Tying heavy cotton sashes around their waists, they head down into the dark cooking cellar to tend the fires. Standing near the open fire pit, they feed glowing coals with armfuls of dried olive pumice. They clear away gray ash and adjust draft vents so the giant copper cauldron reaches a steady boil. Social roles inside the factory follow clear rules based on specialized skill and experience. At the top of the workplace hierarchy sits the master soap boiler, known as the Mihalim or Reis. His deep knowledge of lye proportions and boiling times stays strictly within trusted family lines. Senior cutters and stampers direct floor operations beneath him, while younger apprentices handle physical tasks like hauling water, crushing alkaline desert plants, and sweeping white lime dust. Local merchant clans, such as the Tukan and Shaka families, own these historic soap factories across Nablus. These influential families direct trade networks and political affairs throughout the region. While factory owners live in fine courtyard mansions decorated with marble floors and carved stone fountains, soap makers live in rooms inside the factory or in nearby stone houses. Seasonal contracts and traditional community ties connect workers to the business. Respect guides daily activity in the work hall. Everyone follows the master boiler's instructions during boiling week, because a single mistake could ruin months of olive harvest and damage commercial trust across Mediterranean markets. Morning light enters the upper courtyard as craftsmen gather around a stone water basin. They wash their hands and faces before reciting pre-dawn prayers together. Clothing in the factory is practical, light, and designed to protect against high heat and lye splashes. Lower workers wear loose cotton tunics, called quimban, tucked into wide linen trousers known as surwal. Thick wool sashes, called hizam, wrap around their waists to support their backs while lifting heavy oil bags and wooden tools. Leather slippers fitted with thick wooden soles, known as babuch, protect their feet from chemical spills and hot liquids on the stone floor. Clothing also reflects the master soap boiler's special standing and technical needs. Over a clean white linen shirt, he wears a wool coat, called a juba, dyed in dark indigo blue or madder red. He rolls his sleeves above his elbows while testing the boiling soap mixture. A leather pouch hangs at his belt, holding small brass measuring cups, testing bottles, and a carved wooden stylus used to write batch numbers in factory books. On his head sits a traditional red tarbush wrapped in a silk turban to protect his hair from steam and lime dust. Later in the morning, the factory owner arrives to inspect progress, wearing an elegant silk robe lined with soft fur while holding amber prayer beads and wearing a gold seal ring. Communal breakfast takes place on stone benches in the sunlit courtyard shortly after sunrise. The simple meal features fresh local products from the surrounding Sumerian hills. Workers tear off pieces of warm flatbread, called kubs taboon, dipping the bread into stone bowls of dark green virgin olive oil and fragrant za'atar, a traditional blend of wild thyme, toasted sesame seeds, and sumac. They share slices of salty Nabulsi goat cheese, black olives from farm estates, fresh radishes, and sweet dried figs. Small brass cups of strong Ottoman coffee flavored with cardamom provide energy for long hours of hard labor. Trade networks across the Middle East supply the essential ingredients needed for Nabulsi soap making. Pure virgin olive oil arrives in heavy goatskin bags carried down mountain trails by pack mules from local farming villages. Bedouin groups harvest an alkaline desert plant ash, called barilla or shnan, in the dry steppes of Transjordan and the Syrian desert. Long camel caravans transport bags of crushed plant ash across the desert to Nablus, trading the ash for finished soap bars and woven textiles. Quicklime, used to turn plant ash into strong caustic lye, comes from stone kilns near local quarries. Fresh water flows continuously into the factory from ancient underground aqueducts fed by mountain springs. By mid-morning, soap making enters its most critical phase inside the lower cooking cellar. Standing on a raised stone platform above the steaming vat, the master soap boiler directs the complex mixing process. Over 8 full days and nights, workers add exact proportions of virgin olive oil, water, and caustic lye solution into the bubbling cauldron. The master boiler uses a long wooden paddle, called a mikraf, to stir the golden liquid continuously. He checks viscosity, heat, and lye balance by placing small drops on a cool marble tile, or tasting a tiny drop to confirm how saponification is progressing. Careful testing continues during the final days of the boiling process. The master boiler monitors the chemical reaction closely as oil and lye join together into smooth soap. He adjusts the fire under the furnace and adds small amounts of water or lye solution as needed to achieve perfect balance. His trained eye recognizes exact changes in color and texture that indicate the batch is ready for pouring. After the soap mixture reaches ideal thickness, the master boiler gives the signal to begin pouring. Teams of workers put on heavy leather aprons and carry broad wooden buckets of hot liquid soap up stone stairs to the drying floor. They pour the smooth white liquid directly onto the clean lime floor, which has been dusted with a thin layer of fine white powder to prevent sticking. Using long wooden levelers called masta, senior craftsmen spread the thick liquid evenly across the room into a uniform sheet roughly 3 inches thick, leaving it to cool and set for 24 hours. Precision cutting begins the next morning as the soap sheet hardens to the consistency of firm clay. A master craftsman steps onto the vast white floor holding a long cord dipped in red charcoal ink. Supported by 2 assistants, he snaps the cord across the surface to create a grid of straight red lines. Skilled cutters holding long-bladed iron knives, called musa, walk carefully along the guidelines. They slice the large soap sheet into thousands of uniform square blocks with steady hands and great accuracy. Stampers follow right behind the cutters to complete an iconic step in traditional Nabulsi soap production. Each stamper holds a heavy brass seal attached to a wooden mallet, known as a marzaga. Deeply carved Arabic calligraphy on the seal shows the factory owner's family name, trade mark, and city origin. Moving across the floor in a low stance, the craftsman strikes each individual soap square with a firm blow of the wooden mallet, pressing the mark of origin into the soft top of the block. Metallic clinks echo through the vaulted hall as each block receives its distinct seal. Freshly stamped soap blocks must undergo a unique curing process before export to distant markets. Young apprentices carry individual blocks across the drying hall to construct famous Nabulsi soap towers, known as tanner or harem towers. Workers stack square blocks in hollow geometric circles that rise up to 12 feet toward high vaulted ceilings. The staggered placement of blocks lets dry mountain air pass freely through the center of each tower, drying the soap evenly over several months without causing cracks. Hundreds of white towers stand side by side across the upper hall, resembling miniature architectural minarets inside the building. Auxiliary craft trades support the factory ecosystem during busy production months. Coppersmiths work in the open courtyard, repairing iron hoops and riveting bronze cauldron plates. Cooper craftsmen assemble wooden storage barrels bound with flexible willow hoops. Inside the packing room, workers wrap cured white soap bars in paper sheets stamped with red ink seals, packing them into woven palm leaf baskets for mule transport to coastal ports like Jaffa and Acre. Maritime trade routes move finished goods across regional waters. Ships carry Nabulsi soap across the Mediterranean Sea to bathhouses in Damascus, palace quarters in Istanbul, and wealthy homes in Cairo, where people value its pure ingredients and skin-nourishing qualities. As late afternoon arrives and heat inside the cooking cellar cools down, work slows down for the evening meal. Craftsmen wash their wooden tools with warm water before heading to the nearby public bathhouse, or hammam. There they wash away lye residue, wood ash, and sweat inside warm marble rooms. Emerging refreshed, they gather in the factory courtyard or local coffee houses for supper. The meal includes roasted lamb cooked with eggplant and garlic, bowls of warm lentils topped with fried onions, fresh flatbread, and cold mint yogurt. Relaxation fills the stone courtyard after evening meals as oil lamps light up the walls. Workers and master craftsmen sit together on woven straw mats, smoking tobacco from tall glass water pipes called nargile, and sipping sweet mint tea. Visiting storytellers, known as hakawati, share classic tales from 1001 Nights alongside ancient heroic poetry, accompanied by soft music from an oud. Craftsmen play games of backgammon, rattling wooden dice across carved walnut boards while talking about olive oil prices and upcoming desert caravans. Night brings quiet stillness to the factory compound in Nablus. Night watchmen lock and bar the heavy oak entrance gates from inside, protecting stored olive oil and curring soap towers. Crisp night air blows down from Mount Ebal, moving leaves in surrounding olive groves. Down in the cooking cellar, workers cover furnace coals with damp pumice ash, leaving a soft red glow under the copper cauldron to keep stone walls warm. Apprentices sleep soundly on cotton mattresses in the upper gallery, while thousands of white soap blocks rest in tall geometric towers beneath quiet stone arches. Industrial changes in later centuries brought gradual transformations to this traditional craft. While the masbana of 1780 marked a high point in Levantan soap manufacturing, the 19th and 20th centuries introduced new challenges. European synthetic soaps entered regional markets, maritime shipping routes shifted, and a major earthquake in 1927 damaged historic stone buildings across Nablus. Modern factory machinery gradually replaced manual stirring and floor pouring, making traditional hand techniques rare. Tangible heritage keeps the memory of this 18th-century industry alive today. Restored stone masbana structures in the old city of Nablus, historic brass seals carved with family emblems, Ottoman court registers recording oil tithes, and century-old soap blocks in regional museums honor the skill of Palestinian craftsmen. Across more than 2 centuries, these enduring stone vaults stand as lasting symbols of a time when natural earth, olive harvests, and human care created pure soap in the heart of Palestine.